Hello everybody and welcome back to another blog asset pack video. Now today I'm going to be showing you the process of how I put my train station modular model into Unreal Engine and how I kind of textured it into it. Now the first thing I would like to say is that I do go back and forth, and the process of which the entire materials are being made I've sped up, but you get a main idea of how to do it based on the fact that I show at the start how I created a singular asset and material. And what I will say is that this will be copied throughout all the blogs due to the fact that all of this technique is the same way I did all my other models. They're all blueprint classes, and they're all also the way I made the materials are the same. So everything's about the same. The only thing I would say that would be different would be the fact that it was a lot more time consuming and it took a lot of time. But it's not too bad, but everything is the same way, so let's get straight into it. So the first thing I would like to point out is the fact that I have to export all of my models as an FBX due to the fact that is the file that Unreal Engine reads the model as, and it can actually read it from Maya and import it into as a model into UE4. So I have a folder set up for my Unreal Engine 4 testings. I made some folders already, and I created a train station asset place just so that I can put all my train station assets in there, because they're going to be separate models due to the fact that I made them different materials, so that when I did texture them in Substance Painter, I was able to texture them separately instead of having to go through the hassle of having to texture everything together and having to use a paintbrush and all that, and similar kind of effects and etc. So this is literally just starting up phase. I load my level that I had all my stuff in. As you can see here, I have to import it. There's this menu by here that says there was a change in the source where I like to import. I would like to import all of them because they are all of my train station models. So now I have to load my asset pack file map, and as you can see, I'm going to save all that was selected because due to the fact I want them in. So here you can already see I put in my shelf and wall lamp model. They look really good, and basically I'm not going to show you how I textured them because I already did it, and I forgot. But also to do with the fact that it's exactly the same way as the train station, how I put my models in, the materials, and how I exported them in. So there's no point going over every single one of them if I'm just going to be going over the same point. So for my train station, I create a blueprint class because it's going to be a modular asset. This is to do with the fact that I can put in all the models that I want. I put them in, I can parent them if I want to. And essentially what happens is when I do that, hold on, in case I missed something. Okay, yeah, so here I'm just importing them as static message. At the first, this did mess up. This did mess up because for some reason it wasn't allowing me to do. It didn't give me the option as the same for the wall lamp or the shelf, and I think that's on my part. I might have chose the wrong settings. But anyway, what I was going to say was there's no point in me redoing the videos if they all go with the same thing. So what you're going to be seeing here is me building a blueprint class due to the fact that my train station modular, so therefore I have a model that I might have only modeled once, which I'll use again. The same with the windows, I only modeled one window and one glass plane, and therefore I can duplicate them across instead of having to put them into Maya, which therefore would keep the run which would therefore make the frame rate lower. So instead of having to model them, I can instead put them as a blueprint into Unreal Engine and therefore keep the frame rate down. So over here you notice I start off with my platform. Now one thing I will say is I do not like the camera setting within Unreal Engine, so yeah, I'm really bad with it personally, and that's all my fault, but well. I did it the wrong way, but I'm going to enlarge my platform so I can get a base starting structure, because Unreal Engine uses real-time blueprints. So essentially what that means is when you create the blueprints and then you put stuff into it, Unreal will then display it at the same time as you put it on, so therefore you can see the progress you're doing and whether any changes need to be made of the model, and whether you need to say when you're in this viewport and then the actual game viewport, you can then change the models accordingly to how you want it to if there's been any mistakes, such as some ambient occlusion marks aren't lining up, so therefore you need to move it over, and all things such as that. So yeah, so here is my starting point. So, and let's get down to business. So I'm going to make my viewport smaller, and I'm going to include the platform 2 section. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm just rebuilding my entire train station again that I made within Maya. So I'm trying to get it as accurately as I can. For some reason the viewport is weird with perspective that I noticed with this, and that's one thing I would say that really threw me off at one point. This point I realized I had it on the the axis, the scaling axis instead of moving axis. So one thing I will say is that for some reason Unreal Engine is very kind to when it tries to remember where you placed all your models, and it saved me a lot of time instead of having to evaluate where I put all my models and thinking where's the most sensible place, because it kind of automatically does that for you to a limit. And that's one thing that Unreal Engine is really friendly user, because the nodes are kind of like code. You don't have to write the code yourself. They're already there for you. And B, the blueprint section is rather nice because it tries to figure out where you last place all your models and all that. So it's a really good program to start learning. And yeah. So here I'm going to start building my train station. And I'm not going to fast forward this part because I want you to see the process in which I'm having to do all this. Is really annoying and it's a really time lengthy process. Nowhere near as time lengthy as making my materials and all that all together, because that took like overall I sped up my footage for that by 900 because it was 50 minutes, so now it's 5 minutes. So it took a very long time, but it's you get the point of it because you understand what I'm doing since I show an example of it first here. So yeah, essentially what you do with this, what you do is you drag all your materials and models over onto your blueprint section, and then you have to automatically adjust it to the way you want it to be and where all the ambient occlusion markings and all that will be. But for now I'm doing it myself, and overall it turns out really nice. I was in a hurry with this model because I was on a time limit, like a time restraint, because most people did 2 or 3 models and I'm here doing 4. And I initially modeled out 15 because I wanted different ideas, and then in the end I was like, alright, which models do I really want, which models do I not need, and which models will fit my theme, which was like Japanese futuristic. And then you might be thinking, well, how is this futuristic? Well, I kind of wanted it to be with the fact that it's all worn out kind of futuristic. So essentially, it's in the future. It's set many years ahead. But with this Japanese thing we're doing, I made a Japanese train station and shelves and wall lamps, etc. I want it to look worn out. So the fact of it's been abandoned, and it looks really abandoned. And I'd set the environment and atmosphere to a nighttime setting. So then I can have the wall lamps flickering, or create a really nice evening atmosphere of really abandoned areas with some grasslands and some patchy grass maybe I might make quickly, just to add that sense of like really nice evening looks and like stereotypical 1-point perspective film shots, because I feel like it would work really well, and that's my plan to do. And overall I think most people understand what I mean, because it's still futuristic, it's set in the future, it's all worn out and all that. It's Japanese culture, and I reckon it'll work out really well. So over here, it takes a while for me to do this. I have to scale out some of the things myself. I'm not going to rush through this completely, but you can see here the process is me putting down the models and then having to change everything the way I want it to be. So you can see all this here. I put the train tracks, I then put the buildings. The lighting is coming in nicely. For something so simple, it can turn out really well for me. And yeah, it's all about changing the values of the locations and all that, and much more. So now here's where we go into our assets. Now I have 96 textures for my train station. 96. Because I put out ambient occlusion, base color, height, metallic, normal, roughness, specular, and or diffuse and all that. You can see those on my design sheets, which will be above this section probably. It took a lot of time. Substance Painter took a while to do it. So here is how I make my materials. So first of all, hold on, let me go back. I have to right click and create new material, and I call it train station. And I called this, I needed this to be the platform because I thought, you know what, if I'm going to start anywhere, I might as well start with a platform. Because it was it's the base, so I think it would be a good idea to start there. Because you get an idea of what it'll look like, and then you go through and then you see how I do the rest of it. Speed quick. So you go into it, and then you have to select texture samples. Now, what these texture samples will allow me to do is it allows me to include the base color, the ambient occlusion, the metallic, the roughness, and the normal map. I didn't add the specular map due to the fact that when I added the specular map in Unreal Engine a bit ago, it kind of caused a bit of problems. So I did two different specular maps in the end. I did a specular map, and I tried both of them, and neither of them worked properly. So in the end, I had to leave it due to time constraints and all that. So if I was to do something different, I would definitely go back and learn how I could have improved those sections, so I could have included them in the video. However, you can still notice that I have baked out my specular maps and all those on the design sheet. So it's there, it's just not in this part. So what you'll notice is that I now create a, I go up, I need to find the platforms first. At first I didn't bother thinking about using the search in the textures area. But yeah, I searched up platforms. I found the platform for platform 1. So then I go into the materials, and then, you know, I have to go to the material expressor. That is where you insert your material, and based on the things you need, Unreal Engine, like I said, is really nice. That was a base color, so I put it to the base color. The metallic will go to the metallic node. The roughness will go to the roughness node. The normal map will go to the normal map node, and the ambient occlusion will go to the ambient occlusion node. Now, ambient occlusion is essentially any light that is being prevented from getting to a certain area based on real-time light. The base color is the base UV and colors of the model. Normal map, basically any details and height that I did, in Substance Painter, it's going to put it onto that. It's going to show any fake detail that I created using fake lighting. And then the roughness, it's going to get either the indents or the ingrains of the thing to make it seem as if it actually has a bit of height to it, and all the textures to it. So as you can see here, I've applied everything now. I'm now going to attach everything accordingly to the node selector that it needs to be. So you can see it here, me doing it. I was a bit worried at first because it didn't show my model at first, so I got a bit skeptical, but overall it wasn't too bad. It actually worked, and it showed the detail. So you can see it right there, that's it. And then I'm going to now apply this to my platform 1 model, which is in the blueprint for the modular. And you're going to see me do that right now, in which I just go and I assign the material. So I go to train station assets, to the train station, and I need to go to the viewport. I accidentally deleted it. I was a bit of an idiot, so let me skip this part a bit. So I go to the viewport. I need to make my Windows viewport again. The platform here, the element 0, I am going to change to the platform material I just made now. I scrolled past it. So I find my platform material, which is right underneath it, but apparently I'm too stupid to see. And it creates all the detail that I had in Substance Painter, and I thought, you know, it worked out really well to how I wanted it to. So I was really happy with what I did. So now, essentially, now what I did was I moved the building essential to the ambient occlusion markings and all that, just so that I could get better detail and all that, and etc. So the next process you're going to see after this part is you're going to see me speed times lapse of me making the materials and assigning them all onto the model, and then you're then going to see me afterwards with the finished model with all the textures in Unreal Engine. And essentially that is going to be the exact same process of how I did my wall lamp and my shelf and the mountains texture I have, mountains model as well. And overall, you know, I'm really happy with how it turned out. Obviously, I could have maybe, instead of worrying too much of what models I wanted, I could have focused on the 3-4 models I initially wanted and just worked from those concepts instead of worrying about other models. So that would have given me more time to have done some better texturing and modeling for this, because it's quite low poly. But then again, due to the fact we have a low poly restriction, I probably couldn't have made it any more detailed due to the fact that the train tracks and all that are beveled already and some other stuff. So that probably would have taken up a fair amount of the modular assets. And due to the fact that we want our game to be running smoothly at maybe 30 to 60 frames per second, and you know, we also wanted to be, we want to keep the frame rate high. The more polygons we have and all that, the lower the frame rate will get. So you have to be wary about that kind of stuff. So overall, I think I did really well. What would I do next time would be to manage time better and think more carefully about this kind of stuff, definitely. And then also after that, potentially think about, you know, what went well was the fact that I managed to make it. I managed to make 4 models, which were rather detailed in the end, and they look really nice in my scene. And so after that, I reckon I'll create some quite nice scenery. So thank you very much. And now let's get on to the time lapse, because it took 50 minutes and I cut it down to 5 minutes. So thank you very much. Alright, and welcome back. So this is going to be the end of this part of the video, and then that's it. This will be spread on all 4 different blogs about my videos and all that. And yeah, so pretty much this is going to be the end. This is essentially what my model is looking like at the moment. The textures tend to come back at the end, so essentially what I did was the same with exactly these 2 models here, with the wall lamp and the shelf. I'm going to give you a look at the wall lamp in a moment. Essentially what it is that it's broken up into miniature pieces, and it's being connected by the base, which is the wall lamp base, which is the cylindrical mesh at the start by there. Everything bar from the small plug-in part isn't being taken in, but if you wanted to move stuff individually to make it higher or shorter, you can move each of those individual parts without affecting anything else. And you can see here all the materials have been made in the same way as the train station, where you create the texture samples and then you put everything in. Same with the shelf and all that, etc. So here is the train station. This is what the train station looks like in the end. And, you know, overall, I'm really happy with how it looks. It got the detail in thanks to the lighting. And, you know, I think it looks really nice. There's the copper on the doors and the windows, and, you know, the glass effect I use, which it's you can't see out of it or in it, but, you know, it'll work for now because it was a time saver. So, yeah. So, that's it. That's the process of my texturing. And, you know, I hope you know, you understand what I mean. And, you know, this was a real time saver for what I did. So I'm really happy with how it went. It took a while. It took a very long time. But I managed to get it done. And, you know, overall, I was happy that I managed to get everything done. And I think it went really well. What would have been better is if, you know, there weren't any... if I didn't have as much of a time constraint and I didn't have to rush as much per se, one would have to do. But, you know, overall, I'm happy with how it is. And, yeah, so that is the texturing phase for every single one of it. That is the exact same progress and exactly the same thing you would do for every other model. So thank you very much for watching, and that's it. This is it. All I have to do now is my evaluation, so thank you very much.